Could it increase, alongside defense, restraint created economic vulnerabilities that adversaries like China or Russia may exploit geopolitically?
The short answer is yes, but we have to look at that in a little greater detail. Here's why: is if you look at what they're trying to do, for example, the huge cuts in farm subsidies in this bill, that's going to send everybody, every farmer in the Midwest, and again, these are people in states that elected Donald Trump. They're going to have a hard time getting to sell their product overseas, and people aren't going to buy their product because of the tariff wars. That means that they're going to suffer economically. And then what's that going to do? The people who normally buy the grain, the soybeans, etc., from those farmers here in the United States are going to say, look, I need that anyway. I got to feed my people. So guess what? I'm going to go where I can buy that without any hassle. China, or I'll go to India, or I'll go to somewhere else other than the United States. So you have that aspect. The bill directly affects. The one thing I want to point out here also is that what this bill does, this nationalistic center, I mean, we're talking about 160 billion dollars for Trump's Golden Dome. I mean, an air defense system like they have in Israel, but for the United States. That is crazy idiotic, and it makes no sense. There is no threat of anything like that happening if Donald Trump is the great deal maker that he says he is. Why do we need a Golden Dome? So what we're doing is throwing money against the wall. It's a bunch of talking points, and the Republicans are buying into it. We're starting to see some resistance in this. As my colleague pointed out, we're starting to see, at least 4 senators, which if all four senators vote no, this is in the water, but they're having to make deals. For example, the deal that they're making with Lisa Murkowski, they tried giving her back her Medicaid money. Well, what about the folks in South Dakota or in Kansas that need that money that aren't going to get that same deal? So there's a lot of realization, and this big, beautiful bill, let's look at the polling on this. You're talking about a bill that has public polling, and I've gone through 5 different polls this week, anywhere from 70% of the American population absolutely think this is a disaster for them to somewhere around 53% think that this is going to impact them in a difficult way. This is a bad bill, not a big, beautiful bill. And I think Donald Trump overleaned his ski tips in pushing this forward and making this his agenda.
Well, it's not just the Medicare, but also, as Chapman, the bill tightens eligibility for food stamps and housing aid. How might this reshape the judicial landscape of economic rights litigation in the U.S.?
Yes. Well, one of the other controversial aspects of this bill are the cuts to food stamps and other welfare programs. The truth is, our welfare programs, well, first, the federal government is paying for the bulk of welfare costs, and because the federal government is in debt, Trump's bill is trying to pass some of these costs onto the states, and this is because the level of fraud, waste, and abuse is so high that the states do not really have any guardrails. They will just allow anyone into the welfare programs, which is one of the things that contributes to the waste, fraud, and abuse. The federal government is saying, hey, states, if you're responsible for some of these payments, then you will be more accountable and you will eliminate the wasteful spending. This is controversial because the states do not want to have to, no one wants to give up free money from the federal government. They're all going to fight to keep it, even though every American pays for the federal government, and then that money is redistributed to the states. your other guest, Justin, raises an important point, which is our military spending. And this is the elephant in the room no one wants to talk about. We have just increased our military budget to $1 trillion. We just recently spent $1 billion in Yemen, losing to Ansar Allah. And it turns out we spent $800 million during Israel's 12-day war against Iran just on just on air defense missiles to protect the skies over Israel. So our military spending is out of control, and this is one of the things that desperately needs to be cut. However, the Republican Party and many Democrats do not want to look at military spending, which is why we are now arguing over cuts to Medicare, cuts to food stamps. And in truth, the American economic situation, because of our 36 trillion in debt, because of our deficit spending, we're a debtor nation and we're also a borrower nation, which means we owe a lot of money and we're still borrowing a lot of money. And this is going to become unsustainable as other countries sell our treasuries, as our interest rates rise. This is going to lower the value of the dollar and negatively impact Americans' pocketbooks by inflation, which is a hidden tax. So we do need to do something about this, about our economy at this time. Trump's bill is imperfect. There is a lot of sausage making as the senators wheel and deal. Your guest mentioned the dynamic scoring of the bill. He mentions it's a $4 trillion bill. However, with the economic growth projected to come, the 0.8% of increase in GDP over 10 years, this is expected to pay for about 22% of the bill, bringing the cost down to about $3 trillion. There is also the spending cuts. Now, this does make our tax code a little more complicated, but the spending cuts are tied to the tax cuts so that if we do not reduce spending, then the tax cuts are reduced dollar for dollar. So the CBO and other organizations, they say this will really only be about a $1.7 trillion
Yes.
increase.